Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're tackling learning itself.
Ooh, that's meta.
I know, right?
Uh,
But really, it's fascinating stuff. We're going way back to 1932.
that's quite a while ago.
It is. We're looking at excerpts from The Fundamentals of Learning by Edward L. Thorndike.
Oh yeah, Thorndike, a classic. His work is still so relevant today.
Right. It's like you'd think learning is simple.
Yeah, you just repeat something enough times and bam, you know it.
Exactly. But Thorndike's research kind of throws a wrench in that whole practice makes perfect idea.
Yeah, he found that just repeating something doesn't actually guarantee you'll learn it.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. He had people doing things like estimating the lengths of lines over and over and over again,
Mm,
or drawing lines a certain length but blindfolded. You'd think they'd get better, right? Just from sheer repetition.
makes sense.
But some of them barely improved at all.
Wow, so just doing something over and over isn't the key.
Nope. So if it's not just mindless repetition, what is it? Thorndike came up with two key principles: belongingness and the law of effect.
Hmm, those sound a bit jargony.
Oh, they do sound kind of formal, but they're actually pretty simple ideas about how our brains work.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Let's start with belongingness. What's that all about?
Okay, so think of it like this. Our brains are always trying to make sense of the world,
Right.
finding patterns and all that. And if things kind of naturally go together, it's way easier for our brains to connect them.
So it's like our brains are saying, yep, those two things, they belong together.
Totally, like they go in the same mental file folder.
Got it. So did Thorndike actually see this in his research? Like, how did he know?
Oh, yeah. In one experiment, he had people trying to remember pairs of things. Some got nonsense syllables paired with numbers, and others got words paired with their definitions. Guess who did better?
Hmm, I'm going to guess the word definition group.
You got it. Because words and their meanings, we already connect those in our heads. There's that sense of belongingness.
Makes total sense. But random syllables and numbers, our brains are like, wait, what? These don't go together?
Exactly. No pre-existing framework for connecting those. So it's not just repetition. It's about presenting information in a way that makes sense to our brains,
Yeah.
helping us make those connections.
So interesting. All right, that's belongingness. What about this law of effect thing?
The law of effect. This one's all about rewards and consequences, how those shape the way we learn.
Hmm, that sounds like it could be applied to, like, everything?
It pretty much can be. It boils down to this: actions followed by something good, something pleasurable or satisfying. We're more likely to do them again.
Make us.
But actions followed by something unpleasant, we try to avoid doing those again.
Right, like our brains are wired to seek out rewards and avoid punishments. And that totally influences what we learn and how we learn it.
Precisely. Thorndike showed this with his famous cat puzzle box experiments. You've heard of those, right?
Oh yeah, vaguely. I remember something about cats in boxes from psych class.
Yeah. He'd put a cat in a box and the cat had to figure out how to get out, like by pressing a lever or something.
And if they got out, there was a reward.
Exactly. A tasty treat. So the treat was the satisfying thing. And each time the cat escaped and got the treat, the connection between pressing the lever and getting that reward was strengthened.
So the cat learns, hey, if I do this, I get something good.
Exactly. And we see this in human learning too. Think about when you finally figure out something you've been struggling with, that aha moment.
Ooh, yeah, like that feeling of finally understanding a concept. It's almost like a reward in itself.
It is. It's a mental high five.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then you're more likely to keep learning, keep going.
Yeah.
Because you want to experience that feeling
You
again.
got it. It's like your brain saying, good job, keep at it.
So we're not just talking about actual physical rewards.
Yeah.
It's anything that feels good or motivating.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. Because if we understand how this works, we can use it to create better learning experiences. But before we dive into that.
Wait, hold on. I want to hear more about that. But first, I think our listeners might be wondering about some of the other interesting details from Thorndike's research.
Oh, for sure. He made some other really cool discoveries about how our brains work. Like, did you know he did experiments with word completion?
Word completion.
Yeah. He gave people words with some letters missing and asked them to fill in the blanks. But get this, the position of the missing letter made a difference.
Really? So like some blanks are easier to fill in than others, even if the words have the same number of letters missing.
Yeah. People were way faster and more accurate when the missing letters were in the middle of the word, not at the beginning or end.
That's weird. Why would that be?
Well, it shows that our brains aren't just reading each letter one by one.
Right, like from left to right, in order.
Exactly. We're looking for patterns, using context to make sense of things.
So even with something simple, like filling in a word, our brains are busy connecting the dots, finding those patterns.
Right. And this has implications for how we learn. The way information is structured and presented can make a huge AT difference, but we can unpack all that in the next section.
All right, on to part two. Okay, so we were talking about how the structure of information really matters, how our brains look for patterns and all that. But how does this all connect to how people learn today, in our modern world, with all the tech and distractions and stuff?
Right. It makes you wonder, what would Thorndike think if he could see us now? Like, imagine him walking into a classroom with, like, interactive whiteboards and tablets, or seeing someone learn to code through a video game.
He'd probably freak out. But, okay, would his theories still hold up in those modern learning environments?
I think so, yeah. Remember, his work was about the fundamental principles of learning. Belongingness, the law of effect. Those apply whether we're talking about memorizing stuff from a book or learning, like you said, to code an app.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. So let's take online learning. How do Thorndike's principles apply to that?
Right, so picture a well-designed online course, right? It usually breaks down complex stuff into smaller chunks, bite-sized pieces of information.
Right, makes it easier to digest.
Yeah. Exactly. And that actually taps into belongingness.
Uh,
Presenting info in smaller bits makes it easier for our brains to connect the dots, see how it all fits together.
oh, interesting. And a lot of online courses have like quizzes and stuff built in. Is that where the law of effect comes in?
Totally. Those quizzes give you immediate feedback, like a congrats message or a suggestion to review something. That feedback acts as a reward or a little nudge to adjust what you're doing.
So it's like those encouraging messages are like the treats for Thorndike's cats. Keeps them motivated.
Precisely. Reinforces those good learning behaviors. Okay, now let's switch gears a bit and talk about video games.
Video games, really. I'm not sure I see. I mean, they're more for fun, right? Not really
I
education.
get it. But think about it. Good video games. They present challenges that get harder as you go along. You master one level, bam, you unlock a new one. That structure keeps players engaged, wanting to learn more.
Oh, I see. And you're constantly getting feedback in games, like scoring points, getting badges, leveling up. It's all feedback.
Exactly. Even those little rewards trigger that feeling of satisfaction that Thorndike was talking about. They keep us motivated, keep us learning and progressing in the game.
So even if a game isn't specifically made for learning, it can still tap into all these mechanisms. I bet Thorndike would be fascinated by that.
Totally. He'd be especially interested in how games are being used in education on purpose now. There's a whole field called gamification. It's all about taking those game design principles and using them to make learning more engaging.
Gamification. So making learning more like a game. I can see how that would appeal to like younger generations, especially. They've grown up with video games.
It's not just about making it fun, though. It's about understanding what makes games so engaging and
Okay.
then using that to make learning, well, work better.
Okay, so we talked about online learning, video games. Are there other places where Thorndike's work is still super relevant today?
Oh, tons. Like, his research is basically the foundation for a lot of what we know about behavioral psychology. The principles of reinforcement and punishment, those are still used everywhere. Classrooms, workplaces, even therapy.
So those cats and boxes really taught us a lot about how humans learn.
They did. Thorndike helped us understand that our behavior is shaped by consequences. And that's had a huge impact on how we approach learning and behavior change in all sorts of
It's
contexts.
amazing that work from like almost a century ago is still so important.
It is. It shows how powerful, careful observation can be. And it highlights how fundamental these learning processes really are. But I think one of the biggest takeaways from all this is learning never stops. It's not just something you do in school.
It's a lifelong journey, constantly exploring, discovering new things.
Exactly. And by understanding how our brains learn best, we can make that journey even more rewarding, more fun even.
I love that. So to all our listeners out there, keep those brains engaged.
Yes. And the next time you're feeling stuck with some learning challenge, maybe think back to Thorndike and those cats figuring out those puzzle boxes.
Great point. It's a reminder that even small steps forward can lead to big progress.
You got it. And that being persistent, having a good attitude, can really make all the difference.
Yeah, it really is. Like you unlock a secret level in your brain.
Haha, I like that. But it's true, though. It makes you realize, like, how amazing our brains are. So complex, but also adaptable. And Thorndike's work, it was just the beginning. We're learning more about learning all the time.
So it's like his theories were the foundation, And now researchers are building on top of that.
Exactly. Like, we're discovering new stuff all the time about different learning styles, the role of emotions, how technology is changing our brains. It's a really exciting field.
It makes you realize how much we still don't know about the brain. But even with all that new stuff, Thorndike's ideas are still relevant.
I know, right? It shows how spot on his observations were and how fundamental those learning processes are. But I think one of the most important things we can take away from all this is learning never ends.
Right. It's not like you just stop learning after school.
Exactly. It's a lifelong thing, always exploring, discovering new stuff.
And knowing how our brains work best, that makes it even better, more fun.
Totally. Whether you're learning a new language, a new skill, or even just trying to understand someone else's point of view, knowing how your brain makes connections, responds to feedback, finds those patterns, it just makes it all work better.
It's like having a cheat sheet for your own brain. So, to everyone listening, keep those brains active.
Yes, and next time you're struggling with something you're trying to learn, think back to Thorndike and those cats.
Those puzzle-solving cats.
They're a great reminder. Even small steps can add up to big progress.
And don't give up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That positive attitude, that persistence makes a huge difference.
Well, I think that wraps up our deep dive into learning. Huge thanks to our expert for taking us through all of that.
My pleasure. I could talk about the brain all day.
And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on this little journey. We hope you learned something new about how you learn and that maybe you're feeling inspired to keep on learning. Until next time.